The letter arrived on the 20th anniversary of my father's death. But the first thing that frightened me wasn't his handwriting. It was my husband's reaction. Daniel walked into the kitchen while I was holding the envelope, stopped so suddenly that his keys slipped from his hand, and whispered, "Rachel, where did you get that?" Before I could answer, my sister Leah called him. Not me, him. I watched her name flash across his phone while he stood 3 feet away, pretending not to see it. Then I opened the envelope. The first line was written in my father's unmistakable, blocky handwriting. "Rachel, if your mother and Leah have kept their promise, you will never need to read this. Take 'em." My fingers went cold. The second paragraph contained a date I hadn't spoken aloud in 27 years. June 14th, 1999, the day my newborn daughter died. At least, that was what my parents had told me. And beneath the date, my dead father had written 6 words that destroyed everything I believed about my family. "Your daughter did not die that night." Daniel reached for the letter. I pulled it away. "Why did you ask where I got it?" His eyes stayed on the envelope instead of me. I was surprised. You looked terrified. "That's not fair." Daniel always said that when he wanted a conversation to end. We had been married 18 years. He knew I hated unfinished arguments, and I knew he hated confrontation. Usually I pushed until he shut down, then convinced myself I had solved whatever problem existed. That was one of my worst habits. I managed people. At 46, I managed a small accounting department, our household finances, holiday plans, my mother's doctor appointments, even which brand of coffee Daniel bought. Leah used to tease me about it. "You don't have relationships," she once said. "You have projects." She was 4 years younger, and everything I wasn't: impulsive, warm, messy, able to forgive someone before I had finished explaining why they were wrong. When our father died, Leah slept on my couch for 3 weeks because she couldn't bear being alone. I had trusted her with everything, almost everything. I had never talked about the baby. At 19, I went into labor 7 weeks early at St. Agnes Hospital. My mother told me afterward that my daughter had survived less than an hour. I remembered waking groggy and empty. I remembered asking to see her. My mother had said it was better not to. My father stood near the window and said nothing. For years, that silence had been the cruelest memory I had of him. Now I looked back at the letter. My father had continued. "I learned the truth 3 days afterward. I told myself I was protecting you by remaining silent. I was protecting myself." Leah knows where I left the documents. If 20 years pass after my death, and neither she nor your mother has told you, this letter is my last attempt to give you back what we took from you: the right to decide what happens next. I looked at Daniel. How much of this did you know?" He opened his mouth. His phone rang again. "Leah." This time I answered it. Neither of us spoke. Then my sister said quietly, "Daniel?" I hung up. Leah arrived 20 minutes later without asking if she could come. That was my first answer. My second came when she saw the letter on the kitchen table. She sat down, not confused, not shocked, defeated. "You knew," I said. She rubbed her hands together. "Rachel, how long?" Daniel moved toward me. I pointed at him. "Don't," Leah said. "Dad gave me something before he died." "What?" "A box." My father had spent his final months dying from pancreatic cancer. Leah had visited him more often than I did. I had always felt guilty about that. Now I wondered what those visits had really been about. "Where's the box?" "I don't have it anymore." "Who does?" She looked at Daniel. That was the moment my suspicion changed shape. Daniel and Leah had always been close, comfortable. He defended her when I criticized her spending. She knew about arguments Daniel and I had never discussed with anyone. 2 months earlier, she had even told me, "He feels like you don't hear him anymore." I'd asked how she knew. She said she was guessing. 3 weeks after that, Daniel started turning his phone face down. Then I found a restaurant charge on our credit card from a Tuesday when he said he was working late. 2 dinners. When I asked, he said it was a client. Now I opened our banking app. I searched Leah's name. 3 transfers from Daniel's personal account appeared. $1,500, $2,000, $1,300, all within 6 weeks. "What did you pay her for?" Daniel's face tightened. "It wasn't for her." Leah stood. "I think I should go." "You're not leaving." She stared at me, and for half a second I saw something I couldn't interpret. Not guilt, fear. I asked, "Were you sleeping with my husband?" Daniel said, "No." Leah said nothing. That silence did more damage than a confession. The next morning, I lied to both of them. I told Daniel I believed him. Then I called in sick and drove to Leah's apartment. I still had the emergency key she had given me years earlier. I knew using it was wrong. I used it anyway. The first thing I found was my father's wooden document box in her bedroom closet. Inside were old tax papers, a photograph of my parents outside St. Agnes, and a hospital identification bracelet. My name was printed on it. Beside it was another bracelet, "Baby Girl Carter," no death notation, no funeral record. Underneath was a photocopy of a private adoption agreement dated June 16, 1999. The signature at the bottom looked like mine. It wasn't. My mother had signed my name. I sat on Leah's bedroom floor until my legs went numb. Then I found the receipt. The Harbor Hotel. 1 room, 2 registered guests, Daniel Mercer, Leah Carter. The reservation was from the previous Friday. I photographed everything. On my way out, Leah's neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, opened her door. "You just missed your husband," she said. I stopped. "When?" "Yesterday. He and Leah left together." "Where?" She shrugged. "Same place they've been going, I suppose." That afternoon, I followed Daniel. He drove to the Harbor Hotel. Leah arrived 10 minutes later. I watched from across the lobby as she touched his arm and said something that made him shake his head. Then she leaned forward and kissed him. It wasn't a long kiss. Daniel pulled back almost immediately. But it happened. My sister had kissed my husband, and he didn't tell me. I turned around before they could see me. I was halfway home when another detail surfaced in my mind. The hotel receipt in Leah's apartment showed room spent 100, the 604 on June 14, 614. It felt like a message, or maybe by then I was desperate enough to see messages everywhere. I packed Daniel's clothes before he came home. When he saw the suitcases, he didn't ask why. That hurt more than if he had pretended innocence. "I saw you," I said. "At the hotel?" There was no denial. "Was that where you spent the money?" "Yes. With my sister?" "Rachel, what you think happened isn't. She kissed you." He looked down. I waited. "She did. And you didn't tell me." "No." I laughed once because the alternative was throwing something. Daniel sat on the edge of the sofa. "There is no affair. You meet secretly. You share hotel rooms. You hide money. She kisses you. We weren't alone in that room." I stopped. "Who was there?" He wouldn't answer. That was when I made the decision I still regret. I called my mother. I told her I had the adoption agreement, and that unless she came to my house immediately, I would take it to a lawyer and the police. She arrived 40 minutes later. She looked smaller than I remembered. I placed the forged signature in front of her. "You told me my baby died." Mother closed her eyes. "I believed losing her would destroy you for a year," she said. "Keeping her would destroy your life." Daniel stood. "Evelyn, stop." She ignored him. "You were 19. The father had disappeared. You had no money. You wanted college. So you gave away my child?" "I found a family who could give her everything." You told me she was dead. My mother looked at me then. Yes. No excuses, just yes. I thought that was the worst truth available. Then I asked, where is she? My mother's eyes moved toward Daniel, and I realized my husband knew that too. Her name was Olivia. She was 27. She lived 40 minutes away, and Leah had known her for 11 months. I heard that last part from Daniel because my mother refused to say it. The match had happened the previous year after Leah's daughter convinced her to try one of the ancestry websites. A woman named Olivia appeared as a close family match. Leah understood almost immediately. Instead of telling me, she contacted her. They exchanged messages for 3 months. Then they met. My sister had sat across from my daughter before I even knew my daughter was alive. The room seemed to tilt. Why? Daniel said. Olivia didn't know if she wanted contact with you. So Leah decided for me. She was trying to protect both of you. Don't use that word. He went silent. I understood something then. Every person who had betrayed me had called control protection. My mother protected my future. My father protected the family. Leah protected Olivia. Daniel protected me from disappointment. Nobody had ever considered whether I wanted protection. I wanted a choice. When did you find out? I asked Daniel. 4 months ago. 4 months. He had slept beside me for roughly 120 nights, knowing my daughter was alive. What was the hotel? Olivia asked to meet me. Why you? She wanted to know what kind of life you had before meeting you. The transfers paid for a private investigator and old hospital records. The hotel room was simply where Olivia had chosen to meet them privately during visits. Then I remembered Leah's kiss. Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. She kissed me because she was falling apart. I pushed her away. You still hid it. Yes. Why? His answer came quietly. Because I was already lying to you about something bigger. For the first time, I believed there had been no affair. It didn't make me feel better. It made everything worse. I went to Leah's apartment that night. She didn't pretend anymore. Did you love being first? I asked. She knew exactly what I meant. Her eyes filled, but she didn't look away. Yes, that answer surprised me. She sat on the floor beside the sofa. When Dad was dying, he gave me that box. He told me what Mom had done. He made me promise I'd tell you when you were strong enough. You had 20 years. I know. Why didn't you? Because every year made the next year harder. There was more. I waited. Leah finally said, you were always Dad's capable daughter, the smart one, the one Mom bragged about. I was the one everyone worried about. I almost interrupted, but didn't. When Olivia appeared, she continued, she needed me. At first, I told myself I was preparing her to meet you. Then she started calling me when she had problems. She sent me pictures. She called me Aunt Leah. Her voice broke. And I liked being important before you arrived and became the center again. There it was, not pure cruelty. Something uglier because I understood it. I had spent years treating Leah like someone who needed fixing. I had corrected her jobs, boyfriends, spending, parenting. I had never asked what it felt like to be my little sister. But understanding her resentment didn't erase 20 years of silence. You stole 11 months from me. She shook her head. 20 years. I looked at her. Dad made me responsible for a truth that should never have been mine to carry. I hated him for it. I hated Mom. Then, after enough time, I became part of the same lie. Before I left, she handed me a small knitted blue bootie. I recognized it immediately. My mother had told me the hospital threw away everything connected to the baby. Leah whispered, Dad kept it. One more lie. One more person who had known. I asked Daniel, Leah, and my mother to meet at my house on Sunday. On the table, I placed the letter, the forged adoption paper, the 2 hospital bracelets, and the blue booty. Nobody sat near anybody else. I began with Daniel. You were going to tell me when, after Olivia agreed, so my daughter had veto power over whether I learned she existed. Daniel flinched. That wasn't how I saw it. That's exactly what it was. He admitted he had even called the attorney whose firm held my father's letter and asked whether delivery could be delayed. The attorney refused. That explained Daniel's face when the envelope arrived. Then Leah admitted something else. My father had not merely told her where the documents were. He had given her a second sealed envelope, for me, 20 years ago. You had a letter from him the whole time? She nodded. Where is it? I destroyed it. My mother whispered, Leah. Leah snapped. You don't get to judge me. I could barely speak. Why destroy it? Because Dad told you everything, and if you knew, you would have looked for her immediately. That was my decision. I know. Her voice dropped. I know that now. Then my mother finally interrupted. Your father was not innocent. She reached into her handbag and placed a yellowed hospital form on the table. My father's signature was beneath hers. My chest tightened. You said he found out 3 days later. Mother looked at the letter. He lied. Nevike pamlam the verdi of dar de famdend, my diami deemed. My father had known before the adoption. He hadn't discovered the truth afterward. He had agreed to it. The man whose letter seemed to be rescuing me from everyone else had helped take my daughter away. Years later, guilt had consumed him. Instead of confessing while alive, he gave Leah the documents and arranged for an attorney to mail a final letter 20 years after his death, if the family remained silent. Even in remorse, he had chosen a date when he would never have to face my answer. I read his final paragraph again. I was protecting myself. For the first time, I understood how literal he had been. There had never been one person who stole my daughter from me. My mother made the decision. My father approved it. Leah inherited the truth and buried it. Daniel discovered it and decided I still wasn't ready. 4 different people loved me. 4 different people decided that love gave them authority over my life. I picked up the letter. Then I tore it in half. Not because I hated my father, because he had already had 20 years of my forgiveness without ever asking for it. I met Olivia 9 days later. Not because Leah arranged it. Not because Daniel convinced her. I wrote her a letter myself and told her something nobody in my family had ever given either of us, a choice. I told her I knew what had happened. I told her I wanted to meet her, but if she didn't want that, I would respect it. She called the next morning. We met in a quiet cafe. The first thing I noticed was her hands. They looked like mine. For months afterward, we moved carefully. We didn't pretend 27 lost years could be repaired with photographs and dinners. Sometimes she called me Rachel. Once, accidentally, she called me Mom. Neither of us mentioned it. Daniel moved into an apartment across town. We did not divorce immediately, but 6 months later I filed. He had not had an affair with Leah. I believed him about that. But when the most important truth of my life entered our marriage, he joined everyone else in deciding what I was allowed to know. I could forgive his fear. I could not build another marriage on it. Leah and I went almost 4 months without speaking. Eventually, we began having coffee once every few weeks. I have forgiven parts of what she did. Other parts may take years. She still sees Olivia occasionally. And surprisingly, I don't ask her to stop. Olivia gets to choose her family now. So do I. My mother and I remain distant. She still believes 19-year-old me would have ruined my life by keeping my daughter. Maybe I would have struggled. Maybe I would have made terrible choices. What my mother still cannot understand is that they would have been mine. Last month, Olivia came to my house carrying a small box. Inside was the blue knitted bootie Leah had given her. I think this belongs with you, she said. I held it for a moment. Then I handed it back. No, I said. It belongs to you. 27 years earlier, that tiny booty had been evidence of everything taken from me. Now I watched my daughter place it carefully in her bag. For the first time, nobody in my family was deciding what happened to her life or mine. And that was the only inheritance from my father I chose to keep. The hardest betrayals are not always committed by people who stop loving us. Sometimes they come from people who love us deeply but become convinced that love gives them the right to make our choices. My mother believed she was saving my future. My father chose silence over courage. Leah let resentment turn secrecy into possession. Daniel confused protection with control. I can understand every one of them better now, but understanding is not the same as restoring trust. Forgiveness may release the past. It does not automatically return the relationships that secrecy destroyed. If someone hid the existence of your own child because they truly believed they were protecting you, could you ever trust that person again? Or is taking away your right to know something that forgiveness cannot repair? Forgiveness cannot repair. Forgiveness cannot repair.